Recording in progress. Did you hear? That was terrifying.
That was weird. I've
Right?
never had that before.
Yeah. Right. My name's Dan. This is Dale. Welcome to the first episode of our podcast. We are yet to figure out a name for it, so we're just going to go with the Dan and Dale podcast right now. So we're going to be talking over the next few episodes, however many we do. We'll be talking about football, American football, and basketball. We both have a big interest in all three. We luckily support the same football team, the mighty Hibernian. I myself am a Houston Texans fan and a Milwaukee Bucks fan. Dale?
Well, I am unfortunately a New York Giants and a New York Knicks fan. Obviously, a clear glory hunter. Picked the two
Mm,
most successful teams right now in the world in any sport.
mm. Yeah, I get a lot of glory hunter stuff with supporting the Bucks, especially when I tell people that the first NBA team I supported was the Houston Rockets. They kind of go down, it's one great team to another. And I have to say, I was there before Giannis was elite. Just not true, but so Dale, how did you get into American football and basketball and American sports?
Well, as a youth, I played basketball. Actually, I wasn't really interested in American football. I used to play basketball. I think when I first got into basketball was around the time of like the Miami Heat kind of dynasty era when it was
Mm,
like LeBron, Chris Bosh, D Wade. I've actually got in my room. I have a LeBron James number 6 kind of like big felt triangle I bought the first
mm,
time I was in America with him at the Miami Heat. Still on my wall today. Love a bit of LeBron.
nice.
But yeah, I used to watch kind of like clips from that all the time because I couldn't watch games
Mm,
and stay up that late. I would watch all these clips and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And
yeah.
I'm reasonably tall now, but I was kind of like I grew a bit when I was younger, so I was kind of taller than people, and I had weirdly long arms. Like if you see, there's a picture of me when I'm younger wearing like a Miami Heat kit,
Seen
and
it, loved
my
it.
arms are very much below my knee. I had like the wingspan of like a big bird. So I was like, I
Yeah.
might as well play basketball. I wasn't very good. I could just get rebounds and pass to better players. So I started playing basketball. So I kind of had a passing interest in that. And then kind of started to watch American football after watching like Last Chance U and
Yeah.
the sort of Amazon documentary series that they do like with behind the scenes of teams. So I kind of
So
watched all that and got
the
into it.
All or Nothing with
Yeah,
the Cowboys. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That was a good one. I got I can't oh, maybe having a wee bit of connection problems.
They kind of froze off when you started speaking there.
It's all right. So I was just saying, I don't really remember how I got into basketball. I just kind of remember quite liking it. I think because I was so into American football, so I got into American football through my friend Finley. He was from Seattle, and we played, proper football together. And he just kept telling me about the Seahawks and how much I'd love American football. And I started watching a wee bit, quite enjoyed the Seahawks. And then Xbox Marketplace had a free trial. I think it was Madden 16, the one with OBJ doing the big one-handed catch on the cover. So I started playing that, and I absolutely loved it. And then, every year the NFL do their top 100 rankings on YouTube. I watched the year where it was JJ Watt was number one, and I was like, right, that's it. I'm a Texans fan. This guy is so cool. I don't care how good they are, how bad they are. This is my guy. And they are dreadful now. So I'm really living it. And then I started somewhat getting to, so you're watching an NFL video and in the YouTube suggestions there's always NBA stuff. So I was like, Houston Texans fan, I was for the Rockets. Then I realized the Rockets were really good. James Harden was brilliant. So I was like, no, I'm not going to go for them. Which team do I like? And then I watched a Rockets game, and Giannis was unbelievable, just so exciting to watch. And you could see his game was flawed, but you could see he was just going to be amazing. So I was like, I'll hop on that bandwagon. And yes, been a big Bucks fan since. So obviously, right now is a great time to be a Bucks fan. Well, not so much the past 24 hours of Giannis getting injured, hyperextended knee. So he's out of Game 5 tonight. But be a great time to be a Bucks fan. 5-year deal for Giannis, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. Great time to be a Bucks fan. No, I mean, great time to be a Knicks fan as well, though.
Yeah, I mean it's been better this season. Like when I first kind of started following the Knicks, I was like, wow, this Carmelo Anthony guys,
Mm.
he's a nifty little player. I quite liked
Yeah.
him, and then he left, and I was like, okay, what do we do now? And then they drafted Kristaps Porzingis. I was like, yes, I
Mm.
like him. He's like me. He's just big and gangly, and he can't really do anything but get rebounds. I'm all in. And then he got traded, and I was like, you know, what, fuck him. He's gone. Don't care.
Absolutely.
Don't need him. Didn't
But
need him anyway.
but I mean, he's
Didn't
been
need him anyway.
dreadful since the trip. He's been dreadful this season, hasn't he? I seen a thing that apparently he's really angry that he's in Luca's shadow, which I just find just hilarious.
But just like, you
It's-
know, Kristaps, you really think you're better than Luka
yeah,
Doncic? Really?
look at Doncic, a generational player. You get, Kristaps Porzingis is
Yeah.
a very talented, stretch big, but there's a lot of players that are better than him in his position. Luca, you could
Yeah.
argue, you'd be wrong, but you could argue is the best, point guard in the league. I think you'd be wrong though. But,
Yeah, like
yeah.
I mean, Chris, you've been brought in there to help him, not for
Yeah,
him to help you. You were there to help him be better.
yeah, absolutely. But I think you understand why these players don't want to go
Mhm.
into a team and kind of accept being that second star. So I think it's really interesting when you see Giannis was kind of saying because Chris Middleton in game 3 against the Hawks scored 20 points in the fourth quarter. So Giannis was kind of came out after the game and was just like if Chris is playing like that, then I'm happy to be that that second star and just let him do his thing because it's more important to win than it is for me to put up points, rebounds, assists, and all that. So I really like it. I think it must be very difficult to kind of swallow your pride and be like, I'll accept that I'm not the best basketball player on this team. I'm here to, facilitate. So I understand that, but
Yeah, I mean, I
yeah,
think if anything, I kind of really more understood that after watching like The Last Dance, like the kind of
yeah,
Chicago Bulls Michael Jordan documentary, where you get to see a bit more of like Scottie Pippen and Steve Kerr and all these players. When you see like
yeah,
obviously Michael is like unbelievably good. Like
mm,
there's nobody as good as him, but like you see him like making passes to like Steve Kerr, to him to shoot the game winning shot, and you're like, see,
yeah,
that's like part of being a teammate. You're not in the best position to shoot. Just because you're the best doesn't mean you need to shoot. Let somebody
absolutely,
else take the shot.
yeah. And I think also, it then kind of depends, what's bigger, the need to win, need to appease your ego, or the need to win a championship. And I think you kind of see in the last dance, when Scottie Pippen, sat out that final shot when Tony Kukoc took it. And I obviously I've never watched, a live Bulls game from that era. You know, I've only seen highlights in the last dance and stuff. But I mean, to me, it seemed like, Phil Jackson made the right choice. But obviously, Scottie Pippen, have you seen he came out recently saying he thinks Phil Jackson's, racist because he didn't take that shot. And then he made an interesting point. He was kind of saying, you guys didn't see what went on, behind the camera, in training, in out of the compound and stuff. He's absolutely
Mhm.
right. But I think I don't know, it doesn't seem that giving a giving an inbound pass to a very talented offensive player is racist. But that might be getting into too controversial a
Yeah.
topic for the first episode. So I think we'll steer clear of that. And I think we'll move on quickly. So I think I've just got some notes about what I was wanting to talk about today. So first of all, I think I'd like to just talk a wee bit about the Suns and Clippers series. So I basically wrote a bunch of stats down and found loads of information after game 3 of the series, which is now useless because the Suns have just won the series. But I don't know how much of it you watched, but it was a phenomenal series. But I think Kawhi Leonard, I think, was out for the entire series. I think, and I think it's just a lot. I've seen a lot of people on Instagram kind of saying "Oh, Kawhi, it's a sweep for the Lakers if Kawhi plays." I think they're totally wrong in my humble opinion. I think don't know how much you've seen about Paul George, but he was incredible. 18 straight games in the playoffs, he scored 20 or more. He was first, second, and third in points, rebounds, field goal percentage, and everything. It was incredible. The Clippers were really good. Reggie Jackson was great, and Terrence Mann really stepped up as a starter. But I think if Kawhi's there, these shots don't fall for these guys. Paul George again, kind of going back to being that second guy, which he struggled with in the past. I think you look at how he's been with the Clippers at times, how he was with OKC at times, and then you look back at the Pacers when he was that big star. You argue that he's better when he is the star, but is he? He's clearly not good enough to take a team to a championship. But great series, good fun to watch. Chris Paul getting to a finals is phenomenal.
I mean, it's one of those things where, like, he's one of those players that, for someone like me who doesn't kind of watch basketball religiously or watch as much as I do, like, football or American football, he's one of those players that even though you have a passing interest in the sport, he's like one of those players, you hear his name mentioned, you're like, oh, he's good. You watch him, like, oh, he's, like, you can tell from not knowing a whole lot about basketball, and you watch him play, you're like, yeah, that he's unbelievably good.
Yeah, definitely. But I think obviously you've heard Pandemic Paul, Pandemic P. I think he's a player that, like as like a kid, I wouldn't describe myself as this big basketball head or something. I'd definitely describe myself as like kind of casual fan almost. And I think it's quite easy for a casual fan to kind of see all this stuff on a meme page or on a funny sports page and just be like, oh, this guy's, he's shit, he's rubbish. And then, you kind of see it over and over again because these guys are just clowning him. And then turns out, he's actually brilliant. Paul George missed 2 clutch free throws. Don't get me wrong, they were terrible misses. He really had to knock them down. But, after that, everyone was just, oh, he's terrible. He's bottling it again and stuff. I think it's if you listen to these kind of pages where you're hearing like Julio Jones is washed up and stuff like that, where they're just they're saying what they want to get more followers and stuff. It's understandable. It's very misleading. But yeah, so that, I was just kind of a quick overview about the NBA really, and I think me and Dale both have a massive interest in American football. So I've been, as I said, into American football for probably about 5 years now. What about you do?
I can't really chart exactly how long it's been. I think when I went to like my last year in high school, like 4 or 5 years ago, I was kind of starting to pick it up a bit. That was around the time I think I watched the first Super Bowl I watched was the Falcons Patriots. The Falcons, blew that massive lead, which has been very much a staple of the Falcons for a long time now. And then
of course.
You watch that and you're like, right, okay, I am in for this. This is something I'm absolutely in for. And then you see like the year after that, you get the Eagles and they go on this kind of Cinderella story run all the way down. And like at the time, I didn't really have a team. I was just kind of like watching the sport and I was like, oh, this is great. And then I became a Giants fan and I'm like, that kind of takes a little bit of the shine off of that. I like the Eagles. But it was a great Super Bowl to watch. And then
absolutely
to follow up with the absolute stinker that was the Rams against.
Of course, we convinced all of our friends to watch it with us, and everyone was falling asleep, including us.
Yeah, that kind of ruined it a little bit. We were like, "No, this is going to be amazing. The Super Bowl's always good. Like these last 2 years have been unbelievable. Just watch it with us." And then what was the final score? 10-3.
Yeah, but finals are always disappointing, aren't they? The Champions League this season, past season, PSG and Bayern, was it 1-0? Brutally disappointing.
I mean, as Hibs fans, finals are not something we like to talk about a lot.
Semi-finals or finals are something that I like to steer far clear of.
Actually, just Justin Johnson, even just Sean Rooney specifically. If he's playing, I don't want to watch the game anymore.
It's the hope. It's what my dad says every time. It's the hope that kills you. Never get too hopeful.
Yeah, but so for American football, I've kind of been watching it more seriously for like 3 or 4 years now, where I've like fully immersed myself in like the off kind of field drama and like off field stuff and like keeping up with stuff like the NFLPA last season and like contract negotiations and paying like really close attention to everything. So I feel like I kind of knew a bit more about the full season. So going into this season specifically, I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great season. I think, obviously every rookie class is so highly anticipated and, big off-season moves and stuff. But I think for me, personally, since I've kind of been in the league, I think this was, I'd say the most like interesting off season. I think that's maybe because I'm paying more attention to it, watching more college ball and paying more attention to the statistical side of it. But I think, it's just fascinating to see the moves that teams have made this year, with their off season coaching appointments and the draft. I thought was just excellent, and I thought. Having some slight connection problems. You all right?
Yeah, good. I'm back now.
Cool. All right. So I think the first thing that I've got on the notes to be talking about is so just talking about the steals of the draft. If you've got anything for that.
I think I have a few that I kind of immediately stand out to me. I think one of them, I think the first one off the bat is it depends how much of a steal you make of it. Considering it's the one I've got is still a top 10 pick, but
Mm,
the Detroit Lions drafting Penei Sewell at, what was
yeah,
it, number 7? That is an
7. Yeah,
absolute steal. I cannot
phenomenal
believe
pick.
he
Mm,
fell as far as set because he just an unbelievably good
yep.
offensive lineman. And for a coach like Dan Campbell that they've hired at the Detroit Lions, who in his first press conference was coming out and talking about
Biting
biting
knees,
kneecaps, he
brilliant. Yeah.
clearly wants, like, as Dave Gettleman of the Giants calls, like, hog mollies, these big guys in the
Mm,
trenches. He clearly wants these big guys that are going to go out and, like, fold people like deck chairs.
yeah.
And to be able to go and draft a guy like Penei Sewell just sets a culture straight away for them.
Absolutely.
They're not going to play like soft football. They're going to play hard. They're
Yeah.
going to break your nose. I don't know if the Lions are necessarily going to be an amazing team, but to like build for the future, that's like an amazing piece to have.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the kind of thing that everyone kind of knocked on Sewell during the off season was that he was not this completely developed product. He's this massive, you know, very physical lineman, and he's not got all the technique down. But I mean, you look at it, they have the same knock against Mekhi Becton at the Jets, who is also a left tackle. You know, incredible tackle who's now
Yeah,
going to anchor that left side for the Jets for Zach Wilson for years to
that's the
come.
one thing that really kind of annoyed me after last draft is like obviously we had these like big selection of linemen, and it was like, oh yeah, Becton's like, it was decided before the draft he was the worst one.
Hmm.
He was kind of like, he was good, but he wasn't going to be as good as the other ones. So then the Giants take Andrew Thomas, and I'm like, oh, I wasn't the
Yeah,
guy I thought we should have picked. I would have maybe been more happy with like Tristan Wirfs, but okay,
yeah,
he's good, sure. And then looking at Becton at the Jets, I'm like, oh god, you know,
yeah, absolutely. I think like watching that kind of draft build up, seeing Andrew Thomas at Georgia, he definitely seemed the most pro ready. I thought. I definitely thought that he's well, at least to me, and I think kind of some other people seem to share this view that he seemed massively pro ready, which players like Tristan Wirfs didn't, and to a lesser extent, which I think now you kind of look back at it, you see Tristan Wirfs, was it all pro he made,
yep.
which is just incredible. He is the right tackle for that Buccaneers team for the truly foreseeable future, and I think Penei Sewell is a guy who can probably play, all 5 positions across the O line, especially could do a job at right tackle. And I think there's a lot of advantages to his game.
I think
You know,
unfortunately for the Lions, it might be a season like too late for them because like
maybe.
Stafford spent like a decade there literally getting his back broken. He was on his arse that much that like he was
Yeah,
just beat down and bruised. And you finally go out and get like a top echelon lineman the year
yeah,
you deal him to the
exactly.
Rams. Like
Yeah.
Jared Goff might be, he might be able to keep himself upright to overthrow a pass, but he's gonna be a little bit.
But I mean, I feel like the Lions have really set themselves up well to kind of, they've now got, 4 first round picks over the next 2 years. And I think, you see that kind of business and you think if they draft well, if Dan Campbell knows what he's doing, which I think from their draft this year makes me think they do. Because I've got my pick for an offensive steal that is another Lions player. I think if they draft this well again, I'd love to see them do good things. I like the Lions. I like the city of
Mm.
Detroit. I've got quite a soft spot for the Lions and then the Pistons. So I've got my offensive steal as a Amon St. Brown, who was picked in the 4th round by the Lions. Sorry, and I think after the loss of Golladay and Marvin Jones, having someone like Amon St. Brown, who's this massive personality, a hugely aggressive player, offensive captain at USC, his dad put in the name Saint into his name so he'd have a cooler name to come into the NFL, and he did that for his other brothers, one of which is in the NFL and one of which is at Stanford right now, looking like he will. I think just a guy like that is a great culture, a person to have in that kind of culture that Campbell's clearly trying to make. I think he just seems like he's very pro ready. He can do a lot in a wide receiver room that's massively depleted. You know, they've got Brashad Perriman. I think is maybe looking like he might be the wide receiver one, and you know, bringing in Jared Goff, going from Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Robert Woods to what he's got now. You know, granted he's got Hawkinson and Swift out the back, but you know that's two tight end and a running back. You know, it's not the elite receiver they need, but Amon St. Brown I think could be an excellent player in the slot. And I think for me, I think if you're looking like a bit further down the board, he's definitely my steal for the draft. But you know, you think about players like Sewell and even you know like Justin Fields going at 11, I think is a phenomenal pick for the Bears. But you know, he very much has history behind him. You know, Ohio State quarterback, Chicago Bears quarterback. It's not a great look.
Yeah, the Bears just have never ever had an elite quarterback like ever.
Jay Cutler.
Well, you know, big up the cut man, but they just I do slightly feel sorry for Bears fans because like since when I got into the NFL, they've always been known as having this like unbelievably good defense, especially when they brought in like Khalil Mack. It's like, right, this you know this should be like a team to win things, and obviously Mitch Trubisky did not work out at all when they hoped they would. But I do hope Justin Fields does well, because I think that trade that got Fields to Chicago was a very beneficial one for both teams. Obviously, from a Giants perspective, I didn't think at the time. Sort of going at the draft, our biggest need was sort of edge linebacker, and I thought the quality of player available does not justify a pick that high.
Yeah,
edge player, and I thought our wide receiver room was good enough that we didn't have to spend that pick on a receiver. Now, I do think if the Eagles hadn't jumped the Giants and picked Devontae Smith, they would have picked him.
Yeah, that's what I've seen a lot.
I do think that was going to happen. I think that's going to be a blessing in disguise. I think he'll do well in Philadelphia, and I think he's a great player. My hope was that we were going to get Jalen Waddle, who obviously didn't.
Phenomenal player.
He went to Miami. So, but like, yeah, the Giants trading away and then picking Tony with the 20th pick, not who I saw coming at all, but having some
address a need.
Yeah, having some time from the draft, looking at Tony, I think he's a really interesting player because he's going to be like a kind of gadget player at the backfield. You can give him the ball off of the snap and let him run. You can play him in the slot. I think he can catch a deep ball as well, but he doesn't have to now. We've got Kenny Golladay who can go and contest the catch.
High point. Yeah, I mean, in this draft, you weren't needing to draft someone that could, high point a ball. You now got Kenny Golladay, which I think is a phenomenal signing. If he can kind of elevate his game, but I mean, granted, he's going from Stafford to Jones, potential Hall of Fame.
It's a big drop off.
Yeah, potentially, not going to be a starter after this season. But I think so. Who was your second round pick again?
The second round pick was perfection. Azeez Ojulari, who I was genuinely hoping that we were going to pick with the first round pick.
Yeah.
Instead of I thought Ojulari, I'd love him. I would have I was thinking maybe Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who I think is another one of the steals of the draft that the Browns drafted in the second round. I think he was phenomenal. But I did my ideal player would have been Jalen Phillips that went to Miami. I did think he was going to. I did think they'd pick him up because they had enough first round picks to be able to take a flyer on a player that has a little bit of doubts because of kind of health reasons. But I thought he was good enough to justify it, especially a team like Miami with enough picks. But yeah, Ojulari, I have high hopes for, very high hopes for.
Yeah, I think I had Ojulari as a defensive steal. And I think, Jalen Phillips, I think it wasn't the strongest edge class. So I think kind of being able to find that sort of talent in the second round was really impressive for me. I think Jalen Phillips is a player that definitely you see, with his health problems, he maybe doesn't start immediately, maybe kind of comes into the season during the mid-season. I think if he can kind of build on his athletic ability and keep a clear medical bill with his concussions in the past, then you maybe do look at him as steal the draft at 18.
I mean, I think Miami's definitely the right place for him because I absolutely love what's going on there now. Since they had that kind of that abysmal season and they manage to start winning, you're like, oh, are they like kind of screwing
Mm.
up their chance of the number 1 overall pick? And you're like, wait, no, they're not. And then you think, well, how are they managing to win these games with the worst roster in the league by a mile? And
Yeah.
they're winning games. And then you look at the coaching staff and you're like, Brian Flores is a fantastic coach, like
Mhm.
a brilliant coach. And they've managed their draft picks so well. They've managed free agency so well. And they've now built a team that in a season or two would be in the right mind to think we are contenders.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. But I think for me, you look at that Dolphins team, and there's just one big question: does Tua take the step? You hear about him throwing 5 picks in the first day of mini camp and stuff, and it's just, uh, does he take this next step? He's playing at this elite level at Alabama, and then Jalen Waddle, I think it was Jalen Waddle and Devonta Smith came out and said, Mac Jones is a much better quarterback. Apparently, when asked who was better, Mac or Tua, they answered like that. I think, does that say something about Mac Jones, or does that say something about Tua? I think for me, with the Dolphins, Tua is a big question, big question, and I think we just, it's only time that will tell. You won't know it till you see it, because he could be incredible in minicamp now. He could have just got 5 picks out of the way and been fantastic now. So I think now we'll move on to talking about offensive reach. So I think what we're going to do here is, so we've talked about our offensive steal. Dale, of course, I had Sewell, I had Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think we're going to do an offensive reach, defensive steal, and a defensive reach, and then we're going to go on to talk about our predictions for offensive and defensive rookies of the year. So, Dale, have you got anything for a reach, an offensive player?
I think it's probably going to be Leatherwood, the Las Vegas Raiders.
That's what I've got as well.
The one thing I will say about that pick is, if they swap their first round pick and their second round pick over, so if they picked him in the second and took Trayvon Moehrig in that position, the safety,
Yep.
everyone says great pick, great pick.
Absolutely.
But because it's the other way around, you're like, that's a great pick in the second. But why the hell have you picked him in the first? And then if you just take it as the class as a whole and you look at the players they got and don't take into account the pick, you're like, that's a good draft. You've done well there. You've picked a bit strange, but you've picked well. But just to have taken him that high, with the other lineman on the board, really?
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. I think I've kind of seen a lot of people saying, I think it's an interesting point. It's almost the Raiders trying to be smarter than the NFL. Kind of saying, we know that you like, Christian Darrisaw, who, of course went later than him. And, we know that there's other players we could have traded up for, but, this is our pick. This is what we're going to do. And, shut up if you don't like it. But I just think, watching some of his tape and, watching just draft analysis, you see it, he's a big guy and he kind of creates that power run that they've got with Josh Jacob that, I think that's what they'll go for. But I think you see Alex. Derek Carr is a good enough quarterback to take a team to the Super Bowl. I do believe that, but I think you draft in Leatherwood, he's not a phenomenal, pass protector against an outside rush. He doesn't get his hands up quick enough and he doesn't use his arms well enough. And I think, I don't know. Yeah, I think you make an excellent point. If it's Moehrig in the first round, Leatherwood in the second, great draft. Leatherwood was projected to kind of go that, 28 to 36 kind of range. To a team around about there. It's just the Raiders being weird. The Raiders will always be weird.
Yeah, they have this thing where they're like, they just fall in love with these players. They're like, this is our guy. And I can understand that if you have a guy in the draft and you're like, this is exactly who fits our system, this is how we want to play, you have to take him. Fair enough. That's why I convinced myself round to the idea of Daniel Jones when the Giants took him. Because clearly they fell in love with him and thought, we need to pick him. And they must have thought there was some chance that somebody else took him, that they took him with the 6th pick instead of the second first round pick. So, if you have your guy, fair enough. Even if the fans don't like it, that's your guy. But, a player that kind of fell unbelievably, I thought, was Tevin Jenkins. I was like, surely he's going to, if you're going to take a flyer on a guy that may have gone in the second, why are you not taking Tevin Jenkins?
Yeah.
He's the much better player. and he can
Yeah.
kind of play. He can kind of play either side, and you're like, Leatherwood. Okay,
Yeah.
if you're a guy, fair enough, but there were better players on the board, and even players that they could have taken in the second round, third round.
I agree with you. I mean, I personally thought this was a good offensive playing class. I thought it wasn't the deepest class we've ever seen, but I thought it was consistently good throughout the class. And I thought, yeah, seeing a player like Leatherwood, who definitely, I think he has first round talent, and I think in 2-3 years we could be, really really not so much regretting what we're saying, but really kind of having to look back and say, we absolutely got that one wrong. But as for now, I think it's definitely a reach. But after picks like Cleveland Ferrell, it doesn't shock me. Doesn't shock
me. Yeah, they're just a weird team.
Weird team.
I mean, they're in Vegas now, so I suppose they're in a weird city. So fair enough. Be weird.
Yeah. So I think we'll go on to talk about defensive steal. So I've got Christian Barmore, who was picked at the 38th overall by the Patriots, which I thought was just an incredible pick. I really did. I think he's just this high grade player. I've got here against Ohio State and Notre Dame in the playoffs, he had a 91.3 rush pass grade and a 23.2% success rate, and 12 pressures in those two games in the playoffs. And I think just kind of being able to do that, obviously I think you forget about a lot of these guys. They're 20 years old and they're performing in front of 60,000-70,000 people. If I was performing in front of 60,000 people fucking tomorrow, 20 years old, I'd shit myself. It would not be a fun experience for me. And these guys are putting up these numbers, and I think his 2020 season, he's a bit hot and cold. You're during a world pandemic. You can't really. I think a lot of the knocks that people have on his game, I watched some of his tape, and obviously I didn't go as in depth as an NFL analyst, but I don't know. I didn't really see. For me, I didn't really see it. I thought he was absolutely first round talent. I thought the Patriots don't have a lot on the interior right now. Belichick is the greatest coach of all time. If there's anyone that can reduce a hot and cold streak to just being pure hot streak, it's Big Bill.
Yeah, I mean, Bill will just pick players from the smallest schools just because he could see something in them that he knows is going to be good. Yeah. And if you see Bill Belichick pick a player that people have questions about whether he can do it in the big game, well, he will be able to do it in the big game because Bill Belichick has picked him. Like, if you see like the Raiders pick him and you're like, okay, he's probably going to be more cold than hot. But you see Belichick pick him, you're like, yeah, okay, he's got it.
Well, there's a story I always see on Instagram every time the combine comes around. It was Bill Belichick skipped the combine one year to go to a D3 school to coach this guy in the pouring rain. And I just think, I remember seeing that guy. I don't know what's happened to him since, but I remember just seeing that he was an edge rusher. I think it's just like, that is the next Lawrence Taylor, without doubt.
It's the most Bill Belichick thing possible.
Yeah, it really is.
See him in like that weird jacket thing he wears just in the rain, and he's just screaming at this guy, go, go, go.
Yeah. So I think next we've got our defensive reach. I personally, for that, I had Eric Stokes, the cornerback from Georgia, who went to Green Bay at 29. I thought it was very odd, to not support someone who's arguably the most talented quarterback of all time when he's clearly being a bit fucking pissy with you and not too happy. I think you can kind of, I suppose, not drafting for Aaron Rodgers is saying we are the Green Bay Packers, we're a great organization, we are bigger than you are. But then at the same time, nothing they get back is going to equal the production Aaron Rodgers will give them. I'm seeing these hypothetical trades, Drew Lock plus 2 first rounds. I just don't think you get from that what you'll get from Aaron Rodgers if you just give him a receiver. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there's not a receiver at that 29 spot for me that I think, changes that organization. But you look at, Terrace Marshall Jr., who went to the Panthers in the second round, I believe. That's a phenomenal pick. And he would have done fantastically alongside Davante Adams. So I think, looking at Eric Stokes, just kind of like breaking down a bit of his film, I thought that of players who went later than him, Newsome to the Browns, I think it was, and Asante Samuel Jr., who I think fits Green Bay's defensive scheme really well. They were down the board, and they were better players than him, I think. And I seen that PFF had Stokes ranked at the 72nd player, and they're taking him as the 29th player. He's a poor tackler in the open field, and he's very complacent with his picks. He's never aggressive, and I understand. You never want to make a mistake, but you have to force turnovers. You're a first round cornerback. You have to go and you have to attack the ball, and Stokes doesn't do that. And I think, big reach, wrong pick, poor draft from the Packers yet again.
Yeah, I mean the Packers are kind of a weird organization, especially with Rodgers kind of seemingly wanting to leave. But the thing is, I see both sides of the argument. I see the side of the Packers being like, well, you're not like, I know you're Aaron Rodgers, but you're not bigger than the organization. We're not just going to cave to your request. And then you think, well, they're kind of hurting themselves to spite him by not drafting. And then you're like, well, there wasn't really anyone there, and they see a position in need, so you take a guy, fair enough. But then from Rodgers' side, it's like just year after year of not picking a first round talent receiver. It's going to annoy you, especially when they draft your heir apparent without even telling you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I do think Jordan Love will be a good quarterback.
Yeah.
And before the draft, I was before that draft, I was watching Jordan Palmer on the Pat McAfee show. He's like a quarterback guru. Obviously, the brother of Carson Palmer, former quarterback. So he's kind of like coaches a lot of the guys before the draft, and he really really talked up Jordan Love to be this kind of like good quarterback, and he was kind of arguing away that the way that people had talked about him, how it's like, oh, he's had so many interceptions. It's like, well, look at the school he played for, look at the players that are around him, and look at the amount of them that will be drafted, not in the first round, just drafted at all. The amount of draft talent around him is little to none. And he's this quarterback that's gonna go in the first or second round. He has to be the one that has to make this superstar play. If anyone's gonna happen, it's coming from him. So he has to make these throws. And necessarily, I've watched kind of a bit of tape breakdown, and not all of his interceptions were his fault. A lot of them were dropped catches or a guy just not doing his route properly.
Yeah.
Some of them were like, there were faults there, but you could see he was going to be a good quarterback. And it was kind of the same when you watched oh my God, his name escapes me now. Former Buccaneers quarterback, Saints backup.
Winston.
Yeah, Jameis Winston, sorry. Yeah, you watch like Jameis Winston's 30 interceptions, you're like, a lot of them are his fault, but like a lot of them aren't. Like he's a good
player. I mean, he was passing leader and passing. Was he passing touchdown leader that year?
I think he was like 30 and 30 around that. Like he's a good quarterback. If he cut down like half the interceptions, he's a good player.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but I think Jordan Love could be, not as putting him as many interceptions, but I think he could be like a kind of similar talented player.
Yeah, I think the thing with Aaron Rodgers, from what I'm seeing, he's kind of, I think if I'm not mistaken, Aaron Rodgers from like SoCal, Southern California kind of thing. So he's kind of beach bum guy, and I think moving to somewhere, the big cheese, Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's not California, and I think he's never really adapted to Green Bay. And I think Green Bay's accepted him. I think he never accepted Green Bay.
I think he clearly would, I think he's actually a 49ers fan, and he clearly wanted to I think he wants to play for the 49ers, but by them drafting Lance, that pretty much says like no. And I think the only other realistically viable option for him is the Broncos, and I don't think
he goes to the Broncos.
You look at your situation and you think, would I be genuinely better off at the Broncos or at Green Bay? Green Bay, really?
I don't know. I mean, you look at Broncos do have a great defense. They have a great defense.
They have a lot of good players. I just don't see them being a great team.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I've seen a lot of kind of analysts kind of saying, they felt like the Broncos are that piece away. And then I think you see them trade for Teddy Bridgewater, and you just think that's not the piece. Mm-hmm. It's really not the piece.
Yeah, Drew Lock is not good enough to start. I don't think.
Totally.
I don't think. And after last season, is Bridgewater good enough to start?
Bridgewater's safe. He's
Yeah,
very safe. He's
he's
going to march the
safe,
ball down.
if not inspiring. He wasn't
Yeah.
great last season. Clearly, the Panthers decided, he's not our guy, and I think they're good. I think they made the right decision to get Darnold, and I do like Darnold.
Great trade. I
Not
like that.
not to sound like Colin Cowherd, but I do think Darnold is going to be a good quarterback.
Yeah, he's got some terrible opinions.
Yeah.
I like Darnold though personally. I think you watch a lot of the stuff he did with the Jets, you are just kind of thinking a half decent tackle picks him up, a half decent receiver makes that better. Better cutting that route. Yeah, I don't know. I think you see Darnold really. If Darnold doesn't do well this season or the next 2 seasons, then yeah, fine.
Yeah.
He's done. Waste of a pick from the Jets. Fair enough. But I think he does it. He does well.
I think the Panthers are a great organization, especially for him to go to, especially coming from the Jets.
Yeah.
They're like a very well-run team, and I think Matt Rule's a great head coach.
Matt Rule, I really like Matt Rule.
He was the one kind of when the Giants were interviewing, and you heard Matt Rule was being interviewed. I want him. He looks to have done amazing stuff at Baylor. They look to be playing some really nice football, neat football. They've produced a lot of good players. He's taken them to a much better place than they were before him. And then he went to the Panthers, and I was like, "Oh, that hurts. That does hurt," because I did think he was going to be a good head coach.
Yeah,
I think he is a good head coach.
I think the Panthers made a lot of the right moves as well. They put players even like Jeremy Chin, who I believe, I might be wrong here, was a 2nd-round draft pick, maybe even I think it was 2nd round. You just look, he's an incredible player, and I think if they can keep kind of hitting on picks like that, and then they can keep Terrace Marshall Jr. I think he's going to be a great player from LSU. Didn't get quite as much hype because he's coming out. He played with Justin Jefferson last year, Jamar Chase. He's not going to get as much hype. It's understandable, but he is. I think he has wide receiver 2 potential, and I think when you're at a team with Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, you don't even have to be wide receiver 2. You can be a phenomenal wide receiver 3. So I think we'll talk about rookie of the year predictions. So talk offensive and defensive if you've got anything for that.
I mean, the kind of obvious bet and the safe bet would be Trevor Lawrence for
Absolutely
offensive rookie. I think that's kind of. I don't see many ways that he doesn't win this.
Yeah.
I don't see there being many scenarios where he doesn't win this, I should say, because even if he doesn't do amazing, it'll still be better than what was there before him. I think the only way he doesn't win this if Urban Meyer turns out to just be a horrendous coach at the NFL level. If he's terrible, then maybe he doesn't win it. And then you're maybe looking at Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, these kind of guys that may win it, that will be good. They will be really good. But you just look at him and you think he's going to be incredible. I just don't think the Jets are a sane enough organization for Zach Wilson to win it. I really do like Zach Wilson. I can't wait to watch him play because I think he's going to be really fun. I don't think Trey Lance starts week 1.
No, definitely not.
I don't think Mac Jones starts week 1.
No.
So I don't think those guys are going to play enough to be able to win it. I think Lawrence is going to be. He's kind of like he runs the organization already. He's run it months before the draft. Everyone knows this is going to be happening, so they're fully prepared for him. And I was watching a video the other night by Brett Coleman going over kind of the origins of the air raid offense and things like that, and basically saying a lot of kind of college coaches have done it really well. And Urban Meyer was one of these college coaches that played a nice kind of air raid system, which is similar to what Trevor Lawrence would have played at Clemson with Dabo Swinney. So now making the move from college to the NFL isn't going to be that much different. It's more of the same sort of. He kind of knows most of the plays. It'll just be kind of adapting to different words and adapting to slightly different variations. I think he'll pick it up quite well because he's quite a smart guy. So I think he's kind of your safe bet for it.
Yeah, definitely. I think you look at what they've done to kind of put pieces around him as well. They've got a phenomenal interior O-line. Brandon Linder was the best center in the league best rated center in the league last year. There are 2 guards, Norwell and Carr, both top 10 pass protecting guards. But then 2 tackles, Alex Robinson and Juwan Taylor. Robinson is fine. Taylor has to take a step up if they're going to protect him. But I think bringing in players like Travis Etienne, bringing his college roommate, great pick. Players like Marvin Jones, really experienced receiver. He's a He's put up 8 touchdowns. 8 touchdowns the past 2 seasons, I think it is. In both seasons. So I think it's really impressive. I think they're building well around him, and I think he's absolutely the safe bet. I'd love to see Zach Wilson pick it. I think the more drafts I watched, the more I began to enjoy him. I think people kind of said, he's playing in a lesser league, and it doesn't matter if he's playing in a lesser league. It matters the throws he's making. Maybe the coverage could have been better on that, but he still hit his receiver so perfectly on the sideline. It doesn't matter how bad the coverage is. He's hit that ball perfectly, and then it was his pro day throw off his back foot across the body. I remember just seeing that, and I think it was I've totally forgotten his name. Analyst that has the show with Bucky Brooks. Oh God, I forgot his name for life.
Daniel Jeremiah, no?
Daniel Jeremiah, that's exactly who it is. I remember just watching his reaction to that throw, and it was just like, even if I didn't watch American football, I would know this kid's. Well, I said this kid. I do believe he's my age, which is very upsetting.
But after he made that throw, every other quarterback of their pro day in the combine was like, "Yep, make me make that throw. I'm doing that
absolutely. Throw." Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields both made it, and it just wasn't as good. Trevor Lawrence, safe bet. Zach Wilson, despite being the number 2 pick,
I think he just looks like such a fun player to watch. Like,
absolutely,
he just kind of runs around and he's just throwing. He just looks so fun. I really can't wait. I actually cannot wait to watch Zach Wilson.
Absolutely, I think he's gonna be great. I think the Jets have actually done a fantastic job to build around him. I actually hit for another offensive steal earlier. I had Michael Carter, who went to the Jets in the 4th round, but I thought was a phenomenal pick. Absolutely phenomenal pick. And I think players like him, Corey Davis, Mekhi Becton, traded up for Elijah Vera Tucker. I like the Jets now. Robert Saleh, great head coach. Love him as a person. Loved him at the 49ers.
To bring him in and to go from Adam Gase to Rob Saleh is a good move. Like, thank God they did not stick with Adam Gase, because if they did, I think Zach Wilson would have just gone down the Darnold road, where he would have been great promise, just couldn't fulfill it because the team around him was terrible.
Absolutely. I think I've seen a thing, and I'm really not sure if it's a joke or not, but I've seen that Adam Gase is apparently now a high school's offensive coach. And I just think that is the biggest step down in all of sport, going from being a head coach at the NFL to be an offensive coordinator for a high school team. I'm really not sure if that's true or not.
I mean, Peyton Manning has to take some of the blame for his career, because I think he was I don't know if he was like an offensive coordinator or whatever for the Colts or for the Broncos, but he worked with Peyton Manning, and Peyton Manning really liked him, and he played really well with Peyton Manning. Or Manning played well under him, so he had his seal of approval, really, which kind of helped teams to decide,
absolutely,
we'll take a punt on him, and God, that's been a bad decision for both teams.
Yeah, definitely. I think just talking about Jets, I really like them. I think one thing that people seem to be forgetting, I think he's obviously not going to be as good as he's been in the past. But CJ Mosley really hasn't hit the field for 2 years now. He played two games in 2018-19 because of injury, and then sat out last season. If he can come back even 3/4, half of what he was at the Ravens, he might not be worth the contract, but does a lot for that defense, especially having a kind of middle linebacker at that sort of level. I think Zach Wilson, dark horse for
I think the tough thing for him is the division that he plays in is one of the hardest in football. You've got the Bills, who are just a serious contender again for the Super Bowl. You've got Miami, who are building themselves to try and make a run to it, and then you've got a mid-rebuild, kind of rebuilding Patriots, who are going to be better than they were last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jets have to take a step up to be even mildly competitive.
Yeah, definitely. I think all of a sudden not so much all of a sudden, but I think that over the past 2 years that division is just kind of go, wow. The Bills taking the division last year, Josh Allen, one of my favorite players in the league.
Me too.
Stephon Diggs, great addition. And the Patriots look like this is the most aggressive I've ever seen the Patriots be during the offseason, going out and signing some really big players. There's Hunter Henry and the tight end from the Titans, whose name now eludes me. But I think they made a lot of big signings, and I really like the Patriots this year. Cam Newton, I think, starts all season. Mac Jones, I'd love to see him next year. Again, Patrick Mahomes type thing. Hopefully he gets game time at the end of the year when, the games are a bit null and void. But I'd love to see Cam Newton get a good run out. No, I love Cam Newton.
I really do like him as well. I think it's kind of like harsh the way, because it's like he didn't have that many. If I think it was like the 5 passing touchdowns last season. It's like, but he was passing to nobodies.
Nobody. Yeah.
Like,
Harry.
Yeah, dude, Jesus. I mean, I do feel sorry for him, because like he shouldn't have had to be that big of a player on the Patriots. Like when he came in, it was like, you're going to be like a kind of auxiliary player. Yeah. And now like Edelman's gone, and it was like just like him with the kind of whole thing on his back.
Yeah.
I do feel sorry for him, but like Cam was throwing to nobodies.
Yeah, definitely. So I think now we'll go for our defensive rookie of the year predictions. So I've got Jamin Davis, who was drafted by the Washington Redskins. The Washington football team. That's not their name anymore. I've written that. So I love him. I think he's phenomenal. I think he comes in and he just gives the football team so much. They've already got phenomenal front seven: Chase Young, Don Payne, Ioannidis, Jonathan Allen. That's incredible front four. And then I just think they have this great front seven, and you put in one of the best defensive players in the draft in there, he's not a raw talent, but he's not the safest talent. He's not someone like Trevor Lawrence. You look at it, he's been incredible through high school, incredible through college. Davis definitely kind of blew up at Kentucky over the past year, 2 years. But I think he's a phenomenal talent. I think especially on that Ron Rivera defense, I think a lot of analysts kind of saying they think that he could have a similar impact to Luke Kuechly, which I think is very high praise. Very, very, very high praise. I think it's brave praise given how incredible Kuechly was throughout his entire career. But I love it, and I think it gives him a lot of passing coverage, which I really like. I think, he just does a lot for the team.
Yeah, I just Washington's defense just gives me the absolute fear. It does strike the fear of God into me. Like it's really good, and like Ron Rivera's an unbelievably good head coach.
Yeah,
especially for the defensive side of the ball. So like, I think without a doubt they have the best defense in the division. I think closely followed by the Giants' defense. Being kind of slightly biased, slightly non-biased, I think the Giants have a top 10 unit in the league, but I think the Reds I've done it there. Washington football team have they're trying to push more than top 10 with that sort of.
Yeah, definitely. I think you look at their team there; they are just without question a quarterback, maybe a few offensive pieces away. For me, I think they're phenomenal.
I think this season going into the division, I think football team should be the favourite. I think the Giants should be closely followed behind them. I think that's kind of my prediction for that anyway. But I think that's a great draft pick from football team. But for me, looking through, I kind of struggling to pick out a player that I want to kind of hedge a bet on, because you look at like the cornerback class was amazing. You look at them and you look at where they've gone. I think JC Horn's going to be great. I think he probably was the better cornerback in the class. I don't think he'll win Rookie of the Year. I think Pat Surtain has gone to an already crowded cornerback room with the Broncos. You've got Ronald Darby, Bryce Callahan, Kyle Fuller, and he's gone in there, which I just think that was a really weird pick for the Broncos.
Yeah.
Especially with like Justin Fields was still on the board. Mac Jones was still on the board. You still have Drew Lock.
Yep.
I think they should have gone for a quarterback, if not traded down, and you probably still could have got a great cornerback. If you look at like Greg Newsome went 26th.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Vic Fangio came out and said he expects Surtain to see most of his reps at slot. And I think for me, you look at that, as you said, you look at that depth chart, he is at best, absolute best, fourth outside corner on that. And, they just spent the ninth pick on him. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think I really like Caleb Farley. I absolutely love Caleb Farley. Down the board, going to the Titans after they lose Adoree Jackson, of course, to your Giants.
Oh, yes.
Amazing pickup, by the way. Of course, they lost Logan Ryan, who's not, solely a cornerback. He can, of course, play free safety, I think it is.
Which is, I think, is going to be his role going forward on the Giants, free safety.
Yeah. I think, great pick for them. If Caleb Farley stays healthy, great pick.
I'd imagine Micah Parsons is going to be one of the favourites to win Rookie of the Year defensively. I don't really like Micah Parsons as much as many other people. I think I was glad the Giants kind of didn't end up in a position to draft Parsons, because I just see him as being, he's an unbelievable athlete. He's a ridiculously good athlete, but from kind of the analysis I've seen on his play, I don't see him being technically as good as the kind of other players. I think he's like a phenomenal athlete. I just don't think the technical side is there. So if he gets coached up well, then maybe, I think in a few seasons he could be. I just don't think going in day one. But I really do like kind of Jalen Phillips and Kwity Paye going to the Colts could be an outside bet for defensive rookie of the year. I think he's a phenomenal player. It was between him and Azeez Ojulari, who I wanted the Giants to draft. I think Kwity Paye is a great player. I think going into the Colts is a great kind of organization to go into at the moment. I think they're a really good team. I think Kwity Paye and Jalen Phillips would be kind of my outside bets for.
Yeah, I think if Carson Wentz plays well, the Colts got a very good chance of at least conference finals kind of thing. But yeah, no, I'm a bit the same with you. I think analysts kind of seem to be completely in love with Micah Parsons, or just ready to end his career today. He's going to be a bust. Might as well not even enter the league. I think he's, as you said, incredible athletic talent. But you just look at him and, he's a linebacker that gets beaten, by running backs coming right at him. And he's not a phenomenal solo tackler, sorry. When you think about what you need a linebacker in this, in the NFL, in a division with Saquon Barkley, I know there's only one I can think of really, but Miles Sanders of the Eagles as well.
And you got Zeke at the Cowboys as well.
Yeah, he's going to be training up against a great player, I guess. But I don't know. I see so many pros, so many cons. He has potential to be an incredible player, and he just has potential to be so disappointing. And I as I do often hope, I really, really hope that he does succeed. But Cowboys aren't the best team right now, and certainly not the best defense. They've had terrible linebackers last year. Jalen Smith was atrocious. Leighton Vander Esch battled with injuries. You just need to see how the three of them work together, really. I think it'll be really interesting. I like him. Whether he succeeds or not is very
there were also kind of reports of like off-field attitude issues and
I saw
and things like that.
Yeah, I saw a lot about that, but then I saw a really interesting thing that kind of said like there's never that came out about like Micah Parsons, Justin Fields. I saw a really interesting thing. It was very funny that the article was kind of saying it's interesting that you would never hear about a white athlete having this kind of not interested in football. All you hear is Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson. They eat, breathe, live football. All they do is football. But I think obviously again I don't want to become talking about too much controversial stuff on this first podcast, but I think it was an interesting point made. That Micah Parsons and Justin Fields are kind of seeing this sort of their commitment to football is not there. Whereas Micah Parsons opted out of 2020. Much like many professionals did, because there was a pandemic and he didn't want to put his family and friends at risk. He didn't want to put himself at risk. I don't think you can question someone's commitment to football when they are just kind of committing to a healthier life. I think
that's a very good point actually, and I think it kind of mirrors the kind of argument you see in our football a lot, where like the way that black players are described comparatively to white players, and like
absolutely
sort of like he's like he's a physical presence and he's a machine, but whereas it's a white player, so he's a technically gifted player. It's that kind of same thing where there's like subtle kind of differences in accusations and
Yeah.
descriptions can be construed in that way. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, well, I think we'd maybe look to wrap it up quite soon, but taking on a wee detour to football, I think we should maybe talk. Obviously, we both love American football and basketball, but I think both of us are real passions football, and I think it would be a disservice to years of pain as a Hibs fan if we didn't talk about football a little bit on our first episode of the podcast. So yeah, I mean Euros. I think we'd talk about the Euros a wee bit, but first of all, just kind of talk. When did you first kind of get into football?
So it's kind of I have a strange relationship with football growing up. I didn't like it for the longest time. I just couldn't. I don't know. I just as a kid, you would go out and people would have a kick about, and I just didn't want to. I'm like, not for me. And then I think started really kind of playing it in like late primary school. Played in the primary school team, like primary 7. But other than that, before then I wasn't really interested. Didn't really watch it much. So kind of properly kind of got into football like later years of like being in the academy. It was like maybe I'd say like 13, 14. I kind of really got into football then. So since then it's kind of been like really into it. But before then it was kind of like play a bit. I wasn't too fussed about it. But about then is probably I'd say when I kind of really got into football.
I think I remember getting really into football. I remember my first ever football game was Ghana versus South Korea at Easter Road in a World Cup warm-up match, I think it was. And I remember just rooting for the winning team. And then I think later on I realised that rooting for the winning team at Easter Road, unfortunately, doesn't mean rooting for Hibs a lot. But after that I was a Hibs fan. Just apart from a terrible, terrible period that I will never let myself forget. When I was 7, when I annoyed my dad for 2 months by being a Hearts fan, because all my friends were Hearts fans, and I really wanted to annoy him. Apart from that, I've been a Hibs fan since as long as I can remember. Yeah, exactly. Terrible period. I don't even remember. I told one of my friends that story when I was very young, and I shot for whatever reason, never really allowed to forget it. But I've been obviously me and you go to Hibs games together and have a very strong relationship with Hibs and have been to many games and will continue to go to many games. And I think I'm just very much looking forward to getting back into stands. Really, when was the last football game you went to? Apart from your recording, of course.
So the last men's football game I was at was, I believe it was Montrose against Stranraer.
The Titans.
Away in Stranraer. Yep, the absolute Titans of Montrose against the immovable object of Stranraer. I think Russell McLean scored an absolute screamer after about 3 minutes before then, putting a ball so far over the bar from about 3 yards out that I could not believe he'd missed it. And then he scored an absolute screamer. And ever since then, I fell in love with him as a player because he's just the most peculiar player. He'll miss an absolute sitter and score a wonder goal. Absolutely love it.
It's the best kind of football.
Yep. Just an absolute hero. Played actually very well in the kind of latter half of the season for Montrose and is now left. But the last men's game was that. And then I think I kind of work in women's football, work for Glasgow City. So I've been blessed with being able to see pretty much all their games, including away trips in the Women's Champions League, which has been amazing.
I think we maybe had a wee bit of a connection problem there. I think the last kind of thing I heard was you describing him as a mercurial.
Yeah, an absolute mercurial talent. So that was like the last sort of men's game I was at, and working in women's football for Glasgow City, been blessed to see most of their games this season.
That's fantastic.
To witness them in the Women's Champions League, which has been a real blessing. Get to see some great players.
So you travelled to Sweden, wasn't it?
It's Iceland and Spain for the Champions League. Last season's Champions League quarter final against Wolfsburg, which ended 8-1, 9-1 to Wolfsburg. Not a great result, but I mean, amazing that Glasgow City were even there and scored.
That is rough.
A great result. Well, in fairness, like to put it into comparison for men's football, that would be like, I'd say Hibs being matched up against like Barcelona, but except Hibs are part time. It's like it's a big ask.
Yeah. I had my first kind of experience of women's football this year. Actually, I was doing like placement for my university course, and I was coaching with Boroughmuir Thistle, who are the women's team at predominant women's team in Edinburgh, and it was a fantastic experience, really eye-opening. I was coaching girls that were anywhere from like 4 to 11, and it's just so interesting. Girls are just infinitely better at that age, infinitely better. They are better technically. They want to learn more. They scream a lot more when you tell them to do stuff, which is always annoying, but they just want to learn more, and they're more enjoyable to coach. They're less nasty than little boys who are very nasty, really horrible people.
They really are.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I had my first experience with women's football really, and I think it really opened my eyes to to women's football again. Maybe this is a conversation for a later episode where I'd love to get into. But yeah, I had my first experience with it, and it very much changed my opinion, not just on women's football, but on football in general. And so you are, of course, a Aston Villa fan.
Yes, I am. Weirdly,
interesting time for you. Interesting time for you.
It's been a very interesting time being an Aston Villa fan. And in case anybody wonders why I'm an Aston Villa fan, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I just kind of accidentally became an Aston Villa fan. At the time, I think it was like 2013, I picked Aston Villa. A lot of my friends were like more predominantly fans of English football and Scottish football. So I was like, I'm not really involved in any of these conversations. I want to be have a horse in this race. I don't want to be a glory hunter. So I think I went through like the Premier League website. And this is going to sound really weird, but I saw Lukaku. I thought he's ace. And he was at West Brom on loan. And I was like, I just don't like West Brom. I don't know why. But I do like this guy, this big Belgian striker. And then I saw Aston Villa and I was like, they've got a big Belgian striker. Pretty good.
Benteke was minted at Villa.
He was so good.
Brilliant.
And then I saw Andy Weimann. I was like, I am so in for this. And then it just went so far downhill. 3 seasons of the Championship. And now Jackie Grealish is the greatest player of all time.
He's surely gone. He's surely gone.
I genuinely don't think he's gone. I don't see it happening. They haven't even put a bid in yet.
I thought they had.
Nope, they haven't put a bid in yet. They're interested in him. Same way with Harry Kane, they're interested in signing him, but haven't bid for him.
Speaking as a Spurs fan, the fact that they seem to be conserving their money from the Grealish signing very much concerns me. I think I think you see so many people kind of saying, if Villa get 100 million for Grealish, if Spurs get 150, 200 million for Kane, you can't say no. And I understand that, you can't say no, but if Spurs get 200 million, they're not going to bring in a player of Harry Kane's level with that money. Because, with 200 million, you can buy 2 players in world football that would do the same thing. Okay, maybe not 2, but you could look at kind of 2 players off the top of my head who would do the same, make the same impact, Haaland and Mbappe. Neither of them are going to come to Spurs, and I wouldn't blame them. So you're actually looking at making small signings. 30, 40 million is a small signing is absolutely ridiculous. But smaller signings, you just don't make the same impact as Harry Kane.
It's like when Bale left Spurs and you go out and buy like Paulinho, Chadley, Capoue, all these just absolute jobbers that come in. But it's like you can't really blame them for doing that, because you lose a player of Bale's quality, Kane's quality, and like Grealish for Villa. There is no way you can replace him. That's why the money for these players is so ridiculous, because you have all this money, you cannot replace.
Yeah,
replace one player. Like, there's no player in world football that does the same job for Spurs that Kane does.
Absolutely, and I think it's like with Hibs with Nisbet. You look at we're saying no to 2 million and that for Nisbet and Doig from Watford and stuff. We're saying apparently no to 1.5 million for Doig, and people are kind of saying, why don't we take the money? It's because for 1.5 million, we need to take this time now. If we know, so I mean. The Hibs are going to sell Doig to Watford this summer. We know it already. The Hibs board will know it already. But they'll be taking their time because they need to find an appropriate replacement for that 1.5 million. They need to find something to do with that 1.5 million. I think a lot of fans kind of think it's so cut and dry. You sell this player, you go out and buy this player. It's absolutely not. You have to, you need to make sure that player wants to be there. You sell this player to make sure he comes. I think
it's like if and when Nisbet inevitably leaves Hibs, no matter how much money we get in, you can't buy a player to replace Kevin Nisbet at Hibs.
Absolutely, yeah. I think especially for the money we got him for.
Yeah, like for the money, that was just a ridiculously good transfer. And because there was questions, is he going to be able to repeat that level that he did? He made this jump from League One to the Championship and then to the Premiership, and he did repeat the level. and he'll probably go and be a success wherever he goes. But like you
I
can't
hope
go
so.
out there and replace him. You look like no matter how much money Hibs get, because like yeah, you've got money, but the Hibs can't financially spend. Say Hibs get
Yeah,
5 million for Kevin Nisbet. You can't spend 5 million on a replacement.
exactly.
The
Yeah.
most Hibs would likely spend on a replacement would be like 1 million to 1.5 million. You
Yeah.
can't spend all that money. All the money goes to
Yeah.
the club and
Absolutely.
funding the season. You can't
Yeah,
spend
definitely.
this much money.
It's not FIFA when you sell 50 million, the board takes 3 million off it, and then you got 47 million to send a player. It's very different. And you see like Spurs. So if I had not given enough context already, I am in fact a Tottenham Hotspur fan, unfortunately. So
Very
I
much the
think
Houston Texans of the Premier League.
well, there's not any Spurs players who have had a lot of sexual misconduct cases such as Deshaun
Yet.
Watson, yet. So we'll see if when Harry Kane really starts to heat up, if he's going to get any misconduct things like Watson did. I think just like you're seeing all this stuff like Spurs have to sell, and they're looking to sell, Moura, Lamela, Sissoko, Aurier, Winks.
Don't even dare sell him. Yeah, do not even dare sell him to Villa.
Well,
Please
I've
don't.
seen that apparently because you look to Ward Prowse, and then because you're not getting Ward Prowse, you're looking at Winks, which I think is
they're
a
the
bit
same
like,
player. Yep, they're
yeah,
very
it's
similar.
like going like, oh, I can't go see Barcelona play football. I'm going to go watch ice hockey. But it's
just not the same player.
I hate that move. I wouldn't mind seeing Winks go, get some real pressure off us to make him good again. I loved him when he came through. I thought he was a good player. I think he was very much like I was actually talking to friends about Winks today, and they were kind of saying, "Oh, he's so rubbish." I mean, he's not a highlight player. He's not someone you see on Match Today doing incredible things. But he's a player who recycles the ball well, defends well, and if you watch 90 minutes of Harry Winks, it's like a Højbjerg at Spurs right now.
Mm.
You watch 90 minutes of Højbjerg, he's brilliant. You watch Match of the Day highlights, he's not there. But yeah, I'll switch topics completely, and we'll talk about the Euros. What's your flat out prediction winner now?
Italy.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Just imagine if what I so desperately want is Italy to get to the final, not to play England. I don't want England in the final, and for a last minute penalty to be given away, and just to see 11 men and a whole nation just go. That picture of Immobile is just incredible. The picture of Barea as well. It's just hilarious.
They just keep doing it. Like Chiesa, like walking up to the referee, just so angrily doing sort of Italian hand thing. It's brilliant.
So you've got Italian family, haven't you?
Yeah, very.
Do they actually do this?
Very much
that
so.
Frequently. Nice.
Very much so.
Yeah,
but it's like
I find it very funny.
It's just brilliant. But like I thought Italy were going to do well before the tournament, and they were kind of like my sneaky. Yeah. I think they like, it's obviously like France were probably like they probably will win it. But the thing I think would maybe win it would be Italy. I said that before the tournament. I thought they'd be decent. I'm not trying to be like, oh, I predicted it, because it's not exactly very hard to predict. They haven't lost since like 20.
Yeah. No.
They're a very good team.
Mancini has them playing some phenomenal
people
football.
Just didn't like pay that much attention to them.
It's because they're so bad at previous tournaments, really.
Yeah.
And I think also you look at Italy, they don't have a superstar. You could argue Donnarumma, phenomenal goalie, but goalkeepers aren't really superstars. Like traditionally, like when you think of like who are the best players in the world, top 5. Even if like hipsters said Neuer back in his peak, people said Neuer to be different and cool. No one really says it. So yeah, when you look at that team, with the exception of Donnarumma, they don't have that kind of like A-list incredible football player. Like Netherlands have got Van Dijk, France have got Mbappe, Portugal Ronaldo, etc., etc. I don't think you have that one defining player personally. Immobile, great striker. Don't get me wrong, but they're just so good as a team, and they're so clearly there to play for each other and to play to win and to redeem themselves. Because Italy are a nation that pride themselves on their football. They've been terrible. They now are good.
Especially this tournament, it's been weird to watch. It's like the first time they'd scored 3 goals in a European Championships ever. The first time, and they did it back to back.
Yeah.
And they kind of played a bit, more brutal against Austria. They had to win the game. They had to do that to get out. And like, it's knockout football is different to group stage football. So I do really like them, but I really don't know who's going to win it. I think it's so incredibly open right now. I would not be surprised if it is like an absolute outsider, like if Denmark go on to win it, which would be amazing.
That'd
But
be
like, I
phenomenal.
think it would be. I think there's a slight possibility that kind of an outsider can go on and do it this year.
Definitely. So I think we'll finish up with who. So your predictions, obviously Italy. Who's your big dark horse? Would you say Denmark?
Yeah, I'd say Denmark.
Yeah, I think I've got Belgium winning it all. I think personally, I think you've either got Belgium or Italy, they win it all. Whoever wins that tie for me wins it. And then I think my dark horse. I mean, it's difficult to look past Denmark. It really is. You can't really call Spain a dark horse, really, because
Yeah,
they are a phenomenal
they're a
team.
dark stallion.
You've watched them in the couple games, and you do kind of think like, this is not a team that's going to win it, but they could come out of nowhere and win it, and that would also mean that I win my family sweepstake, as they're my only team I have left in it. So fingers crossed for that, really.
I just don't want England to win. I'm just scared.
I'll
I'm
be so
scared in case they
upset.
do. I'm scared in
So
case they do.
upset.
Seriously, I'm scared in case they do.
I think I think Spain don't beat them. I think Italy or Belgium beat them.
I think they get to the final. If I had to make a genuine prediction right now, I think it will be an Italy-England final.
Unfortunately, so
I think
I
it'll
have
be a horrendous game, but I hope Italy would to win it.
yeah. I unfortunately have a dark past of supporting England as a half Scot, half English man. I think a lot of people, my friend Ben especially, has a real go at me for my football allegiance is changing. I think I got very enthralled by my dad's rampant support of his home nation, and I think it's just something I regret every day. I'm now very much a fan and supporter of the Tartan Army, but it was very annoying kind of watching Scotland games and being reminded constantly of my tragic past. But I certainly do not want to see England go any further than the quarterfinals. But unfortunately, much like you, I think they will. And doesn't feel right to leave a Scottish sports podcast talking about England, but I think we've been talking about how much we don't want them to win. I think that'll do for me.
Yeah, I mean, if this was to be an English podcast, I think the Gaza goal would have been mentioned about 4 times by now.
We would have got the simulation up of it. We would have.
Yep.
I seen a boy got a tattoo of England 2, Germany 0 with the date and the flags. Probably the same kind of guy who's slating us for celebrating 0-0, really.
Like, fair enough, if you win the tournament and get a tattoo, sure. You've won a round of 16 tie.
England are so obsessed with that rivalry, and I just think Germany couldn't give less of a shit. I really don't.
I don't think Germany care much about anything, to be honest.
Right. Well, Dale, it's been an absolute pleasure to record our first episode of the Dan and Dale podcast. I hope to anyone that's watched, I hope you very much enjoy. And I think this should be going out on SoundCloud. And I think I'm also going to look to get it up on YouTube. So catch you there. And I think we will hopefully be doing a lot more episodes in the future. So Dale, it's been a pleasure.
A pleasure as always.
Nice one.